Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, yWhales, wherever you are in the world. Time zones are one of the few things that Web3 has a horrible time controlling. So it doesn't matter. Here we are. And I've got my amazing new co-host with me that Lily's been showing up a little bit more and more on some of these technical ones as Mr. Goss is out traveling the world and a little unavailable. So I really appreciate her spending the time. And Michael McCarty with Shrimpy today. But before we get to Michael, I just want to make sure, Lily, you have a chance to kind of intro yourself and hang out and say hi with me.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jay. I'm Lily, and I'm a partner at QIS Capital. It's a AI-driven quant fund that does crypto. Also invest on the side in the space. Love it. Advising, building. Avid crypto junkie now. Thanks for having me. Really excited to have Michael here.
Awesome. Michael.
Yeah, and I'm Michael, as mentioned. So, digging into me a little bit and how I got here. Over the course of the last decade or so, I've sort of built up this understanding that I'm sort of a founder type person. And this sort of began in 2012 when I got into cryptocurrency for the first time, mining Dogecoin. So I was in my dorm room in college mining Dogecoin with a whole bunch of my apartment mates. And I don't think the university really appreciated that because that was the time when they didn't really understand the technology. So we were doing that for free. And we sort of built up this operation, and that's the first foray into crypto that I had. But since then, I've been building products. I've worked at NASA, Boeing, Samsung throughout that entire time at these other positions, still building, portfolio trackers, building trading applications, building small tools here and there to manage my portfolio, all sorts of things as part of the crypto space. So it's really great to be here and sort of turning it back to you guys. Really appreciate you guys having me on here.
No, awesome. So I keep hearing Doge, and I remember when Doge came out, and it was a Reddit thing, and it was a joke, and it was funny, and probably who knows where the ones that I had from years ago were, but what was when you saw this, and again it was supposed to be a joke. It's a fork of Bitcoin, and it was supposed to be this nebulous thing. What was your reasoning to say we want to mine them, that we to put that much time and energy into, because it was way more than I ever put into it.
Yeah, so the main reason was because you could make money. So I had a whole bunch of hardware that I wasn't using. I was very interested in Bitcoin at the time. So Dogecoin wasn't how I got into the market, but I was interested in Bitcoin, and I was sort of trying to find ways to get more Bitcoin. And one of the popular ways to do it was to mine Dogecoin and then just trade it into Bitcoin. So I had my setup, I had the mining pools that I was invested in, and I had this process for automatically selling into Bitcoin. That was back in the day when all the exchange would get hacked or you'd lose a lot of money. So I've certainly had my share of lost fortune along the way.
No, it's very again, it's the fact that you grabbed a hold of the technical side of it and then really played with it. As you kind of get into developing these tools, and there's is there any that you really stood out or actually got mainstream adoption, or were they all kind of internal just for you as you're kind of growing your personal crypto portfolio at the time?
Yeah, so before my current company, most of them were tools for myself, tools for my friends, things like arbitrage, trading algorithms, and scripts that I would run. So most of them weren't really designed for mass adoption, and my mindset changed on that in 2017. So I had these internal tools that I was developing, which were extremely complicated. You could chain indicators together, write algorithms, do all of these very technical things to execute trades. And I sort of realized, why am I spending all of this time building things that nobody's ever going to use this? It's too technical. It's too complicated. So that's sort of when my mindset shifted, and I decided, I want to build something that is going to be able to reach, the early and late majority of the market. So 80%, 90% of the industry. And that's when we shifted towards digital asset management. And that's when I launched Shrimpy. But, we could certainly talk about that
Yeah, no,
a little bit more
don't
there.
worry. We got plenty of time for Shrimpy, but you've got some interesting things here. You've survived multiple winters in
Mhm.
crypto, and had some. Again, it sounds like some really amazing opportunities and jobs in your career. Post college and post your Dogecoin mining operation. But what keeps bringing you back? I mean, I mean, so many people when they had that first winter, or the first drop, or the first like, is this ever coming back? And I mean, maybe you're a glutton for punishment. I don't know. But what's the reason why you really just seem to connect with the blockchain and these technologies?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different reasons. Certainly the core reason is the technology. I love the technology. I think it's amazing. And I think somebody like me who's very technical and likes to get into the weeds on things, it's just sort of endless opportunity. There's no uh, bounds on what you could develop in the blockchain space. So, early days for blockchain is very similar to, like the internet, like what a lot of people say, where, there's just so many different things that can be built, so many things that haven't been built yet. And it's just endless opportunity. But besides that, I think I'm a little bit hard headed. I don't give up very easily. It doesn't matter how many times, I fail or I make a mistake. It's just something that I just keep going, don't really care, keep moving on.
And that's
Yeah.
a huge sign of maturity in a asset class where there really isn't a lot. I mean, you can go from zero to $3.5 billion in 7 months, as Ohm showed us, and then down almost twice as fast.
Mhm.
Actually, about 5 times as fast. So, I mean, it's really interesting. What else, inspired Shrimpy? What was again, we're going to run into Shrimpy here in a second, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of tools out there, and
Yeah.
again, I've played with yours a little bit. But what was the thing that just you kept running into and you go, no one's doing this isn't working, I need to build my own, and it's got to be
Mhm.
big.
Yeah. So what really started it was in 2017. During that bull market, I was managing accounts across a whole bunch of different exchanges. So I had a Bittrex account, I had a Kraken account, I had a Binance account. I had like 50 different accounts trying to manage all of these assets, trying to find, which assets are on which exchanges and where's the price on this exchange versus that exchange. And I would just spent all day, all night, just looking at charts, just sort of losing my mind with how much was going on in the market. And it made me realize I want a single platform that connects all of these different accounts where I could just manage all of my assets in a very easy way. Just select the assets I want, and then the platform will go out, it'll buy those assets, automatically index the market, or maintain the allocations that I've specified in a very simple way. So that's what sort of
Great.
started
Now,
it.
now,
Yeah.
now let's see. Now let's talk about it. So, let's hear the overview of Shrimpy,
Mhm.
and all the reasons. Really that somebody who's active. And is this designed for the hobbyist, or is this designed for the professionals, or everyone in between?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the market that we are focusing on is retail mass market. And in order to do this, we understand that we need to make the most simple platform possible for retail investors to get into the digital asset space. And the way that we're doing this is right now we have a platform that connects to different custody solutions and it connects to different liquidity providers, and you can manage your assets across all of these different solutions. But we're sort of going through a transition where we're becoming a registered investment advisor. We're going to be able to begin taking custody of the assets so that customers no longer need to, have an exchange account. They don't need to have a wallet or any of these different things. They could just deposit their funds directly into the platform, much more similar to a traditional investment advisory, and then we'll manage the assets for them so they can get exposure without having to understand the crypto space.
Wow. So, what would be the Web 2 equivalent of that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of equivalents in the Web two. You know, companies like Betterment, companies like Wealthfront, Fidelity, any of these advisories that they connect into your payroll provider. They allow you to invest over decades rather than trying to swing trade, some low cap, low liquidity asset on a niche exchange.
That's fabulous. So, and again, that was exactly what I couldn't think off the top of my head, but Betterment and Wealthfront and a variety of those. So currently the way it sits today, when you log in and it connects your wallet, and tell me, how many chains are you currently active on, and kind of how it all syncs together, because my crypto
Mm.
portfolio is a disaster, and that's where I run into a big problem is, like, I use Zappify quite often, and
Mm.
Zappify is great, but it's like, here's this wallet, it doesn't do this chain, it's missing like half my things, and so it's like, I don't even know where half my stuff is.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So right now, we currently connect to 20 different exchanges, centralized exchanges. We connect to Ethereum. We connect to a whole bunch of decentralized exchanges. So we connect a lot of both centralized and decentralized platforms right now, and we're going to continue adding additional platforms as well. But the idea is still to have this aspect of the business that's the advisory, where you don't have to worry about all of that. You don't have to have different exchange accounts. You don't have to have wallets. Because my opinion is that most retail investors will not take the time or invest the energy to understand what's a wallet, what's an API key, what is DeFi, all of these very complicated topics.
Well, there's also the burnout factor. I mean,
Yeah.
and Lily, you can speak to that quite a bit, because that's exactly how you got into the space, which is the fact that for every day in the traditional stock exchange, it's 4.5 days in crypto. I mean, it never sleeps, it never stops, and it's unrelentlessly brutal. But Lily, what was your experience, kind of in how you developed QIS around that same metric?
Yeah, I mean, it just the knowledge that I'm losing all the time. Like I know what needs to be done, but I can't possibly execute it. But it was also like with QIS is different because it's very like heavily data quant. But like in my own DeFi journey, like I know I should be in DeFi, and so I started exploring, and then it became like hours a day and constantly monitoring. Oh, is this doing airdrops? Am I missing out on this farm? It's like all these strategies all over the place where it feels like crypto is one of those things where you kind of want to go in, but there's no gradual ramp. So you either jump in and the water's like full of sharks and it's sharks and whales and all that stuff. You can't touch the bottom, you're drowning. So you basically figure out how to do that full time, or you sit on the sidelines having FOMO the whole time. There needs to be a gradual ramp. And I think the reason like I think products like Shrimpy make that easy is that you have trusted people like your advisors and stuff you can work with, and then you can gradually get into the pool. That if you want to stake and you want to go look at like go to CoinDix and look at all the different opportunities and go nuts and like be in shit coins, you can go do that. But you have like a shallower, more gradual shoreline that you get into crypto through. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the exact point I was looking to get out of you right there, which is you have to have tools. I mean, having a wallet doesn't really, it's a horrible idea to try to do this on your own, because no matter how much believe in your theses, which is other than just buying and holding, or DCA in, DCA out, even DCA in, like, everyone needs to sleep. Everyone needs to kind of have some time, and being able to use group consensus and professionals in a variety of manners is huge. So, Michael, are you able to do a screen share and just walk through your demo account?
Awesome. So, this is essentially what you can see from Shrimpy. So, this is your dashboard. The dashboard shows all of the different assets that you own on this account. So, for example, I've linked my different exchanges. I have 6 different exchange accounts linked, oh, 5. exchange accounts linked, and a whole bunch of wallets. So, you know, we've been doing a lot of DeFi lately, testing different protocols and things like that. So you can see I have way too many wallets. And you
No,
can
I mean
imagine,
that
yeah,
looks about like half the degens I know.
yeah, and you can imagine this would be a nightmare to manage, individually managing each wallet, trying to remember which wallet do I have assets on and stuff like that.
So real quick, as we see that, in no way, shape, or form did anyone expose their seed keys to give you
Correct.
access. It's an authorization through whichever wallet you're using.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. So we cannot trade for your wallets without you explicitly telling us to execute that trade. So
Okay.
you would have to click on, your wallet. You would have to select the trade that you want, and we can execute the trade for you if you give us permission. But without that permission, we can't trade for you.
What are the
Um,
timeline? What are the time when you say permission? How long is that permission there? Is it per trade or saying like, hey, here's my Bitcoin, do whatever you want?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's per trade. There are, certainly things that you can do with smart contracts to make it a little bit more sophisticated, but we focus on primarily a per trade, um, situation where you sort of approve every trade at this
Smart,
point.
smart.
And when you're looking at this, one of the things that's cool with Shrimpy is, there's this problem that if you ask a retail investor how much in assets do they have at a certain period of time, for example, if I asked you, how much Bitcoin did you have January 2020? I bet most people can't answer that question. It's a very difficult question to answer. But with Shrimpy, what we've done is on your dashboard, you can actually go to any period in time. You can select that period, show the data, and you can actually see which assets you owned at that time. And you could see their performance at that time. You could see what percent allocation you had of that asset at that time. And you can sort of look at any period over the history of your portfolio and get statistics, get analysis of your portfolio at that specific moment.
So my minds immediately go to taxes. This is, I'm sure you can get to it, but is this all exportable? For Excel and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's something we're actually going to be adding here shortly because the tax problem has been on top of a lot of people's minds lately. So we did want an easy way for you to be able to export your entire history, export your balances at any time, analyze your balances, import them into tax services, any of these sort of typical things that you'd want to do.
Talk to me about where the data for all this sits. Is it live reading off the chains as it goes, or are you, when I connect my wallet, is it pulling it into somewhere else, pulling this data?
Yeah, so we actually pull and store most of this data. And that's
Smart.
sort of essential to make it fast. There are applications out there that do pull directly from the chain, but as a retail product, we want our solution to be as fast as possible, as responsive as possible, as user friendly as possible. And the only way that we can realistically do that is not pull from the chain every time we want to do something.
No,
Yeah.
you're preaching to the choir. I'd love for Arweave and all these other ones to be a really good solution and for storage, but not there yet.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So maybe in the future we'll get there. And when that happens, we're always looking for ways to expand our infrastructure so that it's more decentralized, more native, more DeFi, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, the experience to the customer is the number one priority. So if we can't deliver the experience that we need to the customer, then we probably shouldn't be building that. At least that's the way that we think about it. We're a very customer first company rather than trying to build a technology and hoping somebody will use it. We want to first sort of understand the customer and their problems.
That's fabulous. Please keep going.
Yeah, so that's sort of summing up the dashboard. Going through a couple of the other aspects of Shrimpy. You have automations here. Looks like I don't have any automations on this exchange. So switching over to my Bittrex Exchange account, automations are a way where you can configure things like indexes. So if you want to index the top 10 assets, if you want to, create a portfolio of only DeFi assets or only NFT blockchains or, whatever it is, you can categorize assets, create indexes, and then we'll automate that strategy for you. So, you could have a basket of stable coins. You could have a basket of DeFi protocol coins. You could have a basket of, whatever it is, and we'll automate all of those at the same time for you.
That's really interesting. And then you're saying that as you're going forward, you're going to allow other managers to make recommendations and to help you.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yes. So skipping a little bit, we have a social section inside the platform right now. But the way that this is going to look in the future is we're going to begin onboarding registered investment advisors, and they're going to be able to manage the assets directly for the customers through Shrimpy. So we'll have a portal for registered investment advisors to, onboard their clients, manage their customers, and implement strategies for their clients without having to build this entire infrastructure themselves.
And you're posting their historical percentages, and you're able to show, because I'm guessing that's what we're seeing right here is
Yes.
we'll be able to sort and say who's actually the real deal and who's not.
Yeah, so you can see these are different people on the platform. You can see what assets they have. Some of these people have multiple portfolios that they're managing. You can see their allocations across different asset classes, and at any time you can sort of invoke their help by copying their portfolio or, working with them and their community to make better decisions.
And I'm guessing that's an optional thing from like no one should ever follow any financial advice that I give. So I clearly would opt out of anyone seeing my portfolio, but I'm guessing that's an opt-in, opt-out deal.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Lily,
And then,
Lily,
yeah,
I'm so sorry. Lily, when you see this and you see the ability to now bring in, social networking and validation of, there's a lot of people that say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm an OG, and there's a lot of words being thrown around. Do you feel this is, the correct validation for a lot of those people? More than just a blue check next to their Twitter page that they've been around?
Yeah, I mean, I think, copy trading is a safer way than than investing with people. It's a different type of, it's a layer removed from actually giving people access. And so in terms of agency, the agency rests with the person that trades um, with a certain portfolio, right? Copy trading gives you more freedom. And I think that what's interesting about this, and there are other copy trading platforms, like eToro is the one that everybody talks about. But I think what's interesting about this is if you provide tooling for investment advisors and provide tooling for a more gradual conservative approach into the space, I think the copy trading and all of that becomes gravy rather than you end up relying on people generating strategies for you and hyping up strategies to essentially depend on user generated content. And so this is like an additional feature that allows the trading to be more powerful rather than this is the end all be all, because then you can't really control your roadmap if all you're depending on is copy traders. um, but yeah, I think this is I think a step, like for instance, like in the DeFi space, like Enzyme has portfolios that you can opt into, but you're not copy trading them, you're kind of just letting them manage. And so this is like a step removed from SMAs, but still allows you to make decisions on your own.
Yeah, I mean it's a really a fascinating feature. And what's so just again while we're looking at the screen, what's the expansion plans on this?
yeah. So the way that this is going to evolve is, onboarding registered investment advisors. We're actually going through a complete redesign of most of the application right now, but the next one is this social aspect where, the leaders or the registered investment advisors, they can directly take fees from their customers through the Shrimpy platform. So we'll actually do all of the, fee processing, the fee collection, the relationship management between these leaders or these investment advisors and their clients. But all of this is sort of managed through Shrimpy. So this community is continuously expanding. But as was sort of mentioned, it's not the end all be all for our platform. It's not the main onboarding into the crypto space that a lot of people will have. It's sort of first people are going to be dipping their toes into crypto through these different portfolios, through automating these different indexes and things like that. And as they get exposure to the market, they'll have the opportunity to communicate with the community, get to understand people in the social side of the platform. And as they get more comfortable, then sort of go into a little bit more sophisticated things where these leaders can help them manage their portfolios or help them understand the market in different ways.
Yeah, I can say if you give the ability to have some sort of link that goes into people's Twitter profile or whatever it is with this there, it would instantly eliminate 90% of the pundits that are out there, proclaiming how great they are at what they
Yeah.
do. Because this is on chain and this is the real thing, and you can't pick and choose what wallet you want one day versus the other. I think that's I think this brings a lot of validation, and we talk about it constantly about education in and around the industry, and we're always sidetracked and distracted by just the noise, the TikTokers and the people that are looking for fame based on wanting to pump coins, but they're wrong. More often than not, they just delete they delete the tweets where they were wrong.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we have their full trade history. We have their allocation history. We have all of the data that we need to, verify this is their actual history. This is their actual trade history. This is the actual performance that they got in the market, and it's accurate. So, you can't fake it once you connect your accounts to Shrimpy. So the last two sections are really just history. So, this is where you track all of your trades. You track, these are the individual orders that were placed. You could see I added cold storage balances and, removed cold storage balances from my account. We basically just track everything that you've done. And this is where we're going to enable the ability for you to begin exporting data. So, as
Okay.
we mentioned a little bit earlier, exporting trade data, exporting balance data, that's something that we're going to be adding to this aspect of the platform. And
Awesome.
then the last area, this is the area that needs the most love at this point. We are rebuilding our back testing, but ultimately what this is where you can back test different strategies. So you can select a number of different assets, back test that strategy over the last years or whatever date range that you want, and you can understand how these assets performed in a collective over that time period. So helps people make some decisions regarding how to construct their portfolio, how often should I be rebalancing my assets, and all of these types of decisions that people want to make.
Can
Um,
you
I,
talk a little bit about your oh, sorry, can you talk a little bit about your rebalancing feature? Because I think that was like a inflection point that brought a lot of people in.
Yeah. So very early on, one of the core features that we decided to implement was a rebalancing feature. So there's a lot of trackers in the market. There was Blockfolio, there was CoinTracker.io, there was all of these different tracking applications, which are great. I think it's great that people can track their portfolios, but our premise was that people don't want to just track their portfolios; they also want to actually take action on their portfolio. So in order to do that, we implemented a very simple rebalancing strategy. So where you could select your different allocations, and then we would go out and we would buy those assets for you. And then on whatever period that you input, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it was, we would automatically rebalance your portfolio for you. So over the years, this has become a very sophisticated aspect of our platform. Today, we not only just rebalance, but we do smart order routing with our rebalancing. We place a combination of maker and taker orders so that we reduce slippage. We, do all of these very fancy things with our rebalancing so that when you're executing your rebalance, you're reducing the impact on the market, you're not having slippage, you are optimizing your trades in very interesting ways. So we've found that this very simple feature has resonated not only with retail, but it's attracted a lot of more institutional people as well who are using our rebalancing engine to manage, you know, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars because there is no comparable service in the market for high quality order execution when rebalancing the portfolio.
It, I will say that's the biggest thing that keeps me out of a lot of liquidity pools is I just, it's time. I understand how to set them up. I understand what the metrics is. I know how to fix them. I'm not available when things go wrong. And even if I know something's going wrong, that doesn't mean I have the time to say, now I got to go not only look at what the problem is, but then solve it. And so those kinds of things are huge.
Yeah, so there's certainly a lot of complex aspects to even very simple things like making sure that you have enough liquidity for trades. Like each thing that retail investors probably don't think about at all. There's a lot of time and effort that needs to go into understanding how that works, and particularly for platforms like us. So we execute almost as much as 1 million trades every day, which is
Wow.
significant for retail platforms. And in order to execute so many trades, we can't just throw up a bunch of trades into the market and hope for the best. We would just destroy order books and we would destroy like liquidity. It would just be all over the place. So we really do have to be careful with how we place orders, how we make sure that we maintain the liquidity and the integrity of these markets and things like that.
I mean, again, really cool. What's the monetization side of this? How are you charging? How are you taking fees? Is there a coin?
Yeah, so right now we have a subscription model. So we just charge $19 per month for the platform for the base subscription. However, we are looking at moving over to a AUM based model now that we are becoming a registered investment advisor. We're going to add these other elements to the platform that allow us to take a fee based on assets under management or based on these other elements. And in addition to that, the other way that we actually make money is we partner with exchanges. So we have a direct relationship with all of the major exchanges on our platform. And this even includes DeFi as well. So whenever we execute a trade and the exchange collects a fee, we get a portion of that fee that's collected. So we make some money on that as well.
And is that going to continue going on in the future, or is there any changes to the platform coming?
So that aspect will continue in the future. We will continue to build up these relationships and work with these different exchanges to come to agreements on how we can share some of the fees that they collect. So there's no change in that regard. But I would like to clarify that these fees do not impact our customers. So
Okay.
these are fees that the exchange is taking, and we're just taking a portion of their fee. So
Okay.
we're not adding any additional fees to our customers.
And really, that's huge because there's enough fees, and if you're already on Ethereum, we all pay our miner fees
Yeah.
excessively and all the time. What chains are you? I know you're on Ethereum. What chains are you right now? On natively.
So up until today, we've only focused on Ethereum. We do want to, or we will be expanding to some of the other high-profile chains that are sort of coming out now and have gained a bit of traction. So we haven't announced anything yet, but as soon as we do have that announcement, I will be sharing that with everyone
That was
as
a
well.
great political answer.
Can you talk a little bit about how you've built up your AUM, the customer stickiness of it? That part's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so up until today, we have $1.3 billion in AUM from retail investors. So, when we're thinking about our AUM, we've sort of divided it into retail investors and institutions or other, RIAs that are just using our platform right now. So, from the retail side, we have about $1.3 billion in assets under management. And the reason we've been able to build up this, quite large AUM from the retail side is from a number of different reasons. One of which, the simplicity for managing your portfolio over the long term. Our platform is designed for long term portfolio management. We're not trying to, and certainly there's a lot of interest in this. We're not trying to target customers who are interested in swing trading, interested in day trading, or interested in flipping assets on a regular or fast interval. So we're focusing on the customers who are going to stick with us for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, whatever that timeline is, but a much longer timeline. And that's sort of evident from our focus on rebalancing, our focus on portfolio management and indexing. And as we become a registered investment advisor, we're going to continue this mindset. So, what we've seen in the traditional space is if you have a 401k or if you open your retirement account with Fidelity or with whoever it is, generally people stick with them for a long time. It's not like you're going from Fidelity to the next place, to the next place, to the next place. You're sort of settling on, I'm going to use Fidelity, and then you use them until you retire. So, we're targeting those same customers who have that long term mindset.
It's real. I mean, again, what's the process like? And again, from a crypto, Web3 perspective, a lot of these agencies don't understand the terminology we use. So when you're saying you're going to become a registered investor, is that process as seamless as it would be for a traditional fund, or are you finding some challenges in trying to explain how in the world all this works? Because I understand it. I think it's really interesting and beautiful looking, um, but regulators don't really get this.
Yeah, so the process is thankfully pretty similar to the traditional space. And we're when it comes to registered investment advisors, we're not trying to be trailblazers on the regulatory front. So we are not trying to be the first person to, do this new regulatory thing. There's a couple people who have done it before us. We're trying to innovate more on the product side. So we want to have an innovative product, not an innovative, legal structure for our entity or something like that. So we're using a lot of the playbooks that have been developed before, not only for the traditional space, but for people who've come before us who are building advisories. And we're just sort of using their playbook and allowing it to fit into the digital asset space more nicely.
Let, let's take a second, and I'd like to really talk about community. It's a big thing that we always discuss, and clearly you're building the tools that I think communities will want to have in and around there, so that they can recognize which voices know what they're talking about, and other voices like mine that they should never listen to. What are you guys doing to build your own as well as to support others?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of aspects to community. And when we're thinking about community, it does still start with the product. You still have to have a product that people love. You still have to have a product that people want to use. So at the end of the day, our community still starts with the product. And then from that product, we can build a community around the product in a way that's productive. So some of this has to do with our branding. So, obviously our company is Shrimpy, which is a very, um, it's
Memorable.
memorable. Yeah. So that's a good way to put it. And I think that's what we've seen. When customers interface with our brand, they can come back years later and still remember our brand. If you ask me about some of the other startups in the space, most of them are like bit this or crypto that or coin that, and I can't remember any of them. There's just too many of those same named companies, and it's just sort of overwhelming. So, having a brand that resonates with people and allows them to differentiate us is also very beneficial. But then, as you saw in the social aspect of the platform, we are providing the community a way to interface with customers in a unique way so they can help different traders manage portfolios, and they can even earn money. So, for example, yesterday we just paid out one guy $50,000 for managing his community last month, and that was just last month. So there's some people who are making way more than I'm making right now just by managing a community inside Shrimpy.
I manage a relatively large community. I'm on the wrong deal. We gotta be sponsored by this show. Sponsored by Shrimpy. Does that count? Lily, when you look at this, and I think that from a QIS standpoint, again, you guys are your own fund, entirely different deal. Does something like this give you the desire to want to put your metrics on chain in something very simplistic like this, where again, you guys are entirely different deal, but would you want for people to find QIS through a tool like what we saw earlier there?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like comparing Rentec to Fidelity or Robinhood or Betterment. They're different lanes altogether. I think our investors are all QPs or internationally accredited, and our strategy is very active and fast moving, and it would be impossible to copy trade our portfolio. But I would hope that like this is a good way to get people more excited about crypto so that once they make a ton of money and become a QP because Shrimpy's in America, they would want to come to us and be like, hey, can you help me manage a little bit of this? That'd be cool. But I think like it's a like full disclosure, I'm an investor. We've been working with Michael for a while, and I think this is why we're investing because it's a great complement to QIS.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the simplistic value of it. The fact that you are going to go multi-chain, and again, I have a lot of Ethereum based things, but I'm more on other altcoins, other alts as well. And so I love the look of it, but more than anything else, I'm drawn to this, the past, the history. I mean, everything on blockchain is so into this historic ledger, and no one's going to take the time to go like, oh, so and so did this. Let me go check their wallet and run all this through. I mean, you can with a little bit, but this is next level. Developing in this space, and it's not a crowded space by any means, but it's a very, especially with what you're doing. There are some incredibly smart people that are very much opinionated on everything and anything and everything related to blockchain. How do you feel that those adopters or kind of those visionaries are they receptive to this platform, or do you think that there's some concerns with the amount of transparency that will be created by the historical nature of seeing the copy trades like this?
Yeah, so I would say it depends on the person. There's a lot of different types of people in the crypto space, which is fortunate. There's a lot of people that I disagree with, and also, thankfully, a lot of people that I agree with. So one of the things that I found that there's a lot of very smart people that personally I would believe are sort of working on the wrong problems. And a lot of times that comes because they're working on problems that are interesting to them and that they see will solve some very sophisticated technical thing, but it doesn't really have application to the broader market or to retail investors. And that's not to say that everything has to apply to retail investors. It doesn't. But one of the main problems that we have right now is still onboarding people into the crypto space. It's just way too complicated to do. And if all of our smartest people are focusing on, what's the next smart contract thing, or what's the next, NFT thing, or, whatever it is, we're sort of losing all of our best people to these very technical problems that aren't actually bringing more people into the market. They're just bringing, more value to the people who can spend the time to understand that complicated thing that they developed.
Oh, it's very true. So as long as we have you and you're integrate with so many wallets, it was a discussion we were having earlier today on one of our groups. What, why is MetaMask still prevalent? Is as easily one of the worst user experiences I've ever seen of any technology. It's trusted, and I completely understand it, so I still use it. But what are you seeing as you're now integrating with all these wallets? You're probably working with the teams. How do you feel that ecosystem, which is I believe one of the biggest challenges that still has not been solved, how do you feel
Mhm.
that ecosystem is coming along?
I think it's going to change rapidly. So I think, when MetaMask came online, it was innovative in a variety of different ways. This goes back to solving very technical problems. They solved some problems that other people hadn't solved at that point. And that's great for the very early days because, maybe it was the best solution when it came out. But with the nature of the digital asset space, similar to the internet, was that a lot of these very early technologies got disrupted very quickly because their user experiences were bad. So, today people don't use almost any of the technology that was developed early days in the internet. And the reason was because they can't continue to innovate and be, very customer centric. It has to happen from the start. So they have to become customer centric from the start. They have to understand the problem that the customer is trying to solve and continue to solve that problem over the long term. And that problem might change. So for example, if I'm MetaMask and I'm solving the problem of connecting people into DeFi, maybe they solved that problem, but now the problem is evolving. Now it's not just that people can't get into DeFi. The problem might be a little bit different. It might be about now they don't know what to do in DeFi. They get into DeFi and they're like, I don't know where to go. So the
That's the way
problem
I feel.
keeps changing. Yeah, yeah. So MetaMask can't solve all of these problems. They solved their first problem, and now, unfortunately, I think new technologies are going to come along. They're going to sort of disrupt these earlier solutions, and ideally, we're going to get more and more customer-centric companies who are solving these problems better than you know
What's the best one?
MetaMask. Or
What's the best one you've seen so far?
the best one. I mean,
And the only reason I'm asking is you have the largest list I've seen of any provider of integrations of wallets. So I'm just assuming you've tested them all.
it's really, yeah, we have tested them all. It's really hard to say, and it really depends on the perspective or the functionality that you want. Like if you're just looking to do a little bit of lending or something like that, and you just want to use Compound, maybe the easiest one for you is the Coinbase wallet because you can just move some money over from Coinbase. It's all in the same ecosystem. You could do your Compound lending, but obviously they don't do a lot of complicated things. So if you want to do something more sophisticated, that wouldn't be the wallet for you. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. I think a lot of these wallets have solved different problems, but it would be nice if a
Yeah,
wallet came around and
you're
solved a bunch of the problems.
yeah. I was hoping for a solution, and you're again just going through the fact it's so early. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so early, and that's why I'm impressed. And believe me, on the show, I'm usually pretty open with like, yeah, okay, that's cool, yeah, whatever, we'll see in a couple of years when this is mature. But to have a mature tool like yours that's now exceeding the technology of which the users rely on, just again, it shows how early we are and how despite the rapid pace of adoption, there are some parts of Web3 that are just so slow and
Mhm.
lacking behind. And I think that any major adoption, Lily, you can chime in on this. Any major adoption that we're ever going to get is going to have to start with a wallet. It's going to have to start with being an easy way to hold their crypto, and it can't. it can't involve these silly things. Like this to me is the equivalent of like a modem you've got to dial into the internet. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to do it. And so I really, oh, by the way, I take it you support full ledger and cold storage.
I agree with what you're saying though. Like it is the best option right now, unfortunately. But if you're looking for the future, if you're looking for mass market, 90% of the public is not going to use a cold storage solution. And it doesn't matter what people are trying to sell you. Ledger probably pitches that, yeah, this is going to be a mass market thing, but there's just no chance. It's just not going to happen. It's too complicated. There's too many steps. You have to like remember things. If you forget something or lose it, you might lose it forever. It's not practical.
I buy them two at a time, and I've got a dozen plus of them. And I anytime it even does anything slightly weird or the screen flickers, I just smash it and grab a new one because they're really that terrifying of a device. And I think that as much as I'm scared of a number of these other things out there, self custody is a big deal. And so being able to monitor these things because and I probably shouldn't say this on air. If somebody were to drain, one of my wallets, of which there's all over the place, I don't know when I would know that happened,
Yeah.
because there's no way that I'd be monitoring all these things, and so that's
Mhm.
why I have very specific things. And your tool is very interesting because I have very specific wallets for this protocol. I have different wallets for all these other ones, and it's nice to know that you can have that many in there and compounded into a single dashboard. Lily, what did
Mhm.
when you think of that wallet issue and what this solves, because the wallets don't do a good job of this. Does this kind of help you with helping adopt other people into Web3?
Yeah, I think this and custody. We're starting to see a custody migration as well. I would love to have, Mike, I'd love to have you talk more about custody because it seems like people don't tend to like a while ago it was like, oh, it's non-custody, non-custodial. And now like I feel like people don't really care. As there's
Mhm.
like, there's security issues obviously, but I feel like convenience is trumping that in a lot of ways. And then Jay, to your wallet thing, I'd love to tee up Stake Wallet in our surf and turf investment pair here for a later podcast. So
Deal
yeah,
done. I listen, anything that is proving some innovation and can hire a UI person somewhere in the budget, I think is helpful.
yeah,
Although I did see that MetaMask had an update and they now have emojis next to the gas feature. So I mean, again, we don't want to stress them out too much, but we're getting there.
yeah,
Yeah, so digging into custody a little bit, my opinion on custody is maybe a little bit different than the industry. The industry, as I sort of hinted at, is focused very much on DeFi, and they want to force everything into DeFi because they think it solves all of our problems, which I think is unfortunately incorrect. And it's incorrect not because of the mentality, like idealistically, yes, that would be great. But the problem is the customer doesn't care. The retail investors do not care. And it's, again, going back to the internet, that's what we've seen with the internet too. Like retail people do not care about all of these details. For example, the internet. In reality, they don't really care about 99% of things. They care that they can get the data that they want as fast as possible. They care that they can watch their Netflix show. They don't care what happens in the background. And that's the same way with crypto. So when we're building a solution, it has to be first and foremost convenient for the customer. So, you know, we are looking at how we can leverage DeFi asset management platforms to offload custody of assets, but certain portions of the advisory that we're building will have to be centralized. And that's because that's the only way that we could right now provide the best experience for our customers. And if we go the DeFi route and disregard our customers just because our values say that we have to be decentralized, we're just going to lose customers, and we're going to lose this battle to build a massive platform for digital assets. So our number one priority is convenience because the customer doesn't care about anything else. And
I think that's a really interesting approach. And again, the rush sometimes to decentralization and to give away and the project and let the community own it is sometimes premature. And I really like the fact that you have a centralized team that knows, that's mature in the space, understands it, and is really saying, I understand you're asking for this, but here's what we're seeing from your point of view, because you guys just see so much more than a standard user ever would or could research, because this is your
mhm,
livelihood. So that's fabulous. I love it.
yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so as we kind of roll into the last section here, which we refer to as kind of alpha drops. What else are you seeing that just gets you really excited in and around the Web3 space? It can be a coin, it can be an NFT project. I didn't see any NFTs integrated in there as well. Is that something Shrimpy might at some point give us a valuation on our JPEGs?
We have been discussing that. Our team is very excited about NFTs. We've had a lot of people propose solutions for NFTs inside Shrimpy. So that's something that hopefully we will be able to discuss in future. But right now we are still focusing on how can we make it as easy as possible to get exposure to the mass market. So what I'm actually excited about, which is a little bit different than specific projects, is I'm more excited about ways that you can optimize for taxes using, things like IRAs. So being able to roll over your IRA from, whatever platform you're using into crypto, so that you can get, tax benefits. You could get all of these other things to mitigate some of your risk in the market. So I think that's an area that a lot of people aren't really talking about, and I think would use a little bit of exposure. That if you're looking to potentially have some tax benefits, consider how you can do that by looking at your IRAs and things like that.
I mean, it's it's really, again, the first thing I thought when I saw the dashboard and saw everything, and then you can go back historically and be like, well, this is what my CPA has been asking for. As soon as we can export it, but the thought of being able to bring in those longer and those other investment vehicles is very interesting, because even from a very small DeFi perspective, whereas I think anyone doing getting 6% in the DeFi world would be very upset. I'd be thrilled from a TradFi perspective to be getting that as a base, the lowest part of it. So that's awesome. Anything else you think is cool that's not Shrimpy related that you've been playing with a little bit?
Um, Unfortunately, nothing that comes to mind. I mean, I'm always looking at
You're
NFTs. I'm always
yeah, you're full time in the space.
looking
You don't
at
have time to
DeFi.
do anything else.
I don't. It's kind of unfortunate. There's so many things to do, so many things to look at. It's hard to keep up with everything. It feels like as soon as I get excited about something, there's something that comes around the corner, and you're like, oh, that's the new exciting thing, and you're just always chasing the next thing.
Every week, I never know who I'm going to interview or what it's going to be, and it bounces from DeFi projects to dashboards to NFTs. It's fabulous. Lily, you got anything cool that you really want to that you saw in the past week or so that you're excited about?
We've been mostly making private investments. I think that's what's been most exciting. And also, I think every time QIS has like a crypto markets fundamentals call, like I learn a lot, and it's very cool to see what's being built in the space. But I think I echo Michael when he says like there's a lot of solutions looking for problems because people just build for technical reasons. I think like Idle's PYT is interesting, like perpetual yield tranche product is interesting, tranche finance is interesting, the movement into risk differentiation is interesting, but again, over engineered. Like anybody with a mortgage knows how tranches work, and they not properly engineered in DeFi. um, but yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of really cool builders that are coming in, lowering valuations. Interestingly, because like for super new ideas, like people are seeing the bear market and or the like more humble market, and just kind of growing our ecosystem. I think that's been very very interesting, but no specific projects that are blowing my mind. I think Shrimpy is like awesome, but you know, no,
I,
nothing
I,
in
I
like DeFi stuff. Yeah.
yeah, no,
We don't
I'm
think
super
we
excited.
do.
And Lily, you're so excited about Shrimpy. You invested, so
Yeah.
congrats.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much, and really fabulous. How would you like people to reach you, and as well as being able to try out Shrimpy? I signed up this morning and was put on, I think, a wait list. So is that open, or how can people get onboarded, or what's the best way to try out the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in trying out the platform, if you're listening to this right now, you can certainly sign up and then message us through our support system and just let them know that you saw me on the podcast, and we can give you some free time on the platform. So we're happy to set you up with a free account for a bit so you can try everything out, get it all tested, and if you like it, we can see where we can go from there. If you want to contact me, is it is it typical to say emails? I don't know, sort of what's
You know what? I think if you're Twitter or you got a Discord page or
okay.
anywhere else you want to send a couple thousand people, so email may
Yeah,
not be the best.
that's okay. That's what I was sort of curious about. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter is MKMCCARTY3. However, I don't tweet much. Maybe I'll start tweeting more.
That's okay.
Besides that, you can always reach me just by messaging support and just asking for me, and they'll forward the email along to me as well.
Can I
Michael,
also, for
oh,
Michael, would it be okay if I put the raise memo into our group so that
Oh,
people?
yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Cool.
perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you guys, yWhales. There's another one in the bag. Michael with Shrimpy, and Lily. Thank you again so much for the intro,
Thank
and
you.
congratulations
This
on
is fun.
really finding. I think again, never investment advice, but one of the rare jewels of a mature product in a very early phase asset class. So
Yeah, I mean, this is I just, as a last bit, I just feel like roadmap wise, like BlackRock is going to want this, right? Like I think you're going to see a lot of platforms going like we can build it or we can buy it, but we can't build it as well. And so as from an investor perspective, I think, the growth is tremendous and exit avenues are plenty, so we're excited. And Michael's awesome.
awesome, love it, love it. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.